parched and dead, although bushes grew in tough thickets here and there, lending the area a maze-like quality. The village children played here sometimes, although it was not particularly safe. Over the years, many of them had been tempted to clamber down into the quarry, where the steep sides were prone to crumble away. The council put up fences and signs, but the local consensus was that they should do more. Children found ways over fences after all. They had a habit of ignoring warning signs. The man knew a lot about Neil Spencer. He'd studied the boy and his family carefully, like a project. The boy performed poorly at school, both academically and socially, and was well behind his peers in reading, writing, and maths. His clothes were mostly hand-me-downs. In his manner, he seemed a little too grown up for his age, already displaying anger and resentment towards the world. In a few years, he would be perceived as a bully and a troublemaker, but for now he was still young enough for people to forgive his more disruptive behaviour. "He doesn't mean it," they'd say. "It's not his fault." It had not yet reached the point where Neil was considered solely responsible for his actions, and so people were forced instead to look elsewhere. The man had looked. It wasn't hard to see. Neil had spent today at his father's house. His mother and father were separated, which the man considered a good thing. Both parents were alcoholics, functioning to wavering degrees. Both found life considerably easier when their son was at the other's house, and both struggled to entertain him when he was with them. In general, Neil was left to occupy and fend for himself, which obviously went some way to explaining the hardness the man had seen developing in the boy. Neil was an afterthought in his parents' lives. Certainly, he was not loved. Not for the first time, Neil's father had been too drunk that evening to drive him back to his mother's house, and apparently also too lazy to walk with him. The boy was nearly 7, his father probably reasoned, and had been fine alone all day. And so Neil was walking home by himself. He had no idea yet that he would be going to a very different home. The man thought about the room he had prepared and tried to suppress the excitement he felt. Halfway across the waste ground, Neil stopped. The man stopped close by, then peered through the brambles to see what had caught the boy's attention. An old television had been dumped against one of the bushes, its grey screen bulging but intact. The man watched as Neil gave it an exploratory nudge with his foot, but it was too heavy to move. The thing must have looked like something out of another age to the boy, with grills and buttons down the side of the screen, and a back the size of a drum. There were some rocks on the other side of the path. The man watched, fascinated, as Neil walked over, selected one, and then threw it at the glass with all his strength. Pock! A loud noise in this otherwise silent place. The glass didn't shatter, but the stone went through, leaving a hole starred at the edges like a gunshot. Neil picked up a second rock and repeated the action, missing this time, then tried again. Another hole appeared in the screen. He appeared to like this game. And the man could understand why. This casual destruction was much like the increasing aggression the boy showed in school. It was an attempt to make an impact on a world that seemed so oblivious to his existence. It stemmed from a desire to be seen, to be noticed, to be loved. That was all any child wanted deep down. The man's heart, beating more quickly now, ached at the thought of that. He stepped silently out from the bushes behind the boy, and then whispered his name. 2. Neil, Neil, Neil. D.I. Pete Willis moved carefully over the waste ground, listening as the officers around him called the missing boy's name at prearranged intervals. In between, there was absolute silence. Pete looked up, imagining the words fluttering into the blackness up there, disappearing into the night sky as completely as Neil Spencer had vanished from the earth below it. He swept the beam of his torch over the dusty ground in a conical pattern, checking his footing as well as looking for any sign of the boy. Blue tracksuit bottoms and underpants, Minecraft t-shirt, black trainers, army-style bag, water bottle. The alert had come through just as he'd been sitting down to eat the dinner he'd laboured over, and the thought of the plate there on his table right now, untouched and growing cold, made his stomach grumble. But a little boy was missing and needed to be found. The other officers were invisible in the dark, but he could see their torches as they fanned out.